I'm 88 years old, and there's a question I wish someone had forced me to answer much earlier in life. Not when things were falling apart. Not when I was desperate or lost. But when everything looked fine. Because that's when we stop questioning our direction. For most of my life, I believed that as long as nothing was wrong, I was on the right path. I paid my bills, showed up when expected, did what responsible people do. From the outside, my life looked steady, predictable, safe, and I mistook that for fulfillment. No one warns you about this version of regret, the one that doesn't scream. The one that doesn't come from disaster. It comes from repetition. Days that look the same. Weeks that pass quietly. Years that slowly blend together. You don't notice it happening. That's the danger. I remember a season of my life when everything was in order. Work was stable. My family was healthy. There were no emergencies demanding attention. And yet, there was a quiet restlessness that followed me everywhere. Not strong enough to disrupt my routine. Just strong enough to be ignored. I told myself it was normal. That everyone feels this way sometimes. That wanting more was childish, so I kept going. I became very good at staying busy. Busy people don't have time to listen to themselves. The calendar was always full. The days were productive, and the nights were quiet in a way that didn't feel peaceful. I didn't realize it then, but I had stopped being curious about my own life. Curiosity fades when routine takes over. You stop asking questions like, is this still right for me? Is this how I want to spend my energy? Who am I becoming by living this way? Instead, you focus on maintenance, keeping things running. Avoiding disruption. Years passed like that. And then one evening, something small happened. I was driving home after a long day, stopped at a red light I'd passed 1,000 times before. Nothing unusual. Nothing dramatic. But I felt an unexpected sadness. Not tied to a thought. Not connected to a memory, just a heavy awareness that I was living on momentum, not intention. I wasn't choosing my life anymore. I was continuing it. That moment didn't change anything right away, but it planted a seed. Once you see that you're drifting, you can't fully unsee it. You start noticing how often you postpone things that matter. Conversations you plan to have later. Dreams you label as unrealistic. Parts of yourself you silence because they don't fit the life you've built. We tell ourselves we'll come back to them. But life doesn't circle back. It moves forward. Slowly at first, then all at once. One of the hardest truths I've learned is this. A life can look successful and still feel unfinished. Not because you failed, but because you never fully showed up. I spent years thinking that responsibility meant sacrificing myself. That adulthood required compromise. That joy was optional. No one tells you how dangerous that belief is. Because once you start seeing your own fulfillment as a luxury, you'll always find a reason to postpone it. There's always a bill to pay, a responsibility to handle, a reason to wait, and waiting becomes a habit. By the time I understood this, I had already spent decades living in a way that made sense, but didn't feel alive. I don't regret being reliable. I regret being absent from my own experience. There were moments I rushed through because I was focused on what came next. People I listened to without really hearing. Days I survived instead of lived. I thought I was being efficient. I was being distant. Here's something I wish I had known earlier. Life doesn't ask for perfection. It asks for presence. And presence requires courage. It's easier to stay distracted, easier to stay busy, easier to keep moving than to stop and ask uncomfortable questions. Questions like, what am I avoiding? What am I afraid to admit? What part of me have I neglected? At 88, I don't measure my life by accomplishments anymore. I measure it by moments of awareness. Moments when I was fully there. Not planning. Not remembering. Just present. Those moments didn't require anything extraordinary. They didn't come from big events. They came from attention. From slowing down enough to notice what mattered. I used to believe that meaning would arrive once I reached a certain point, a certain age, a certain level of stability. It doesn't work that way. Meaning isn't something you arrive at. It's something you practice, daily, in small ways. By choosing honesty over comfort, attention over distraction, presence over autopilot. I see so many people today exhausted, not because they're doing too much, but because they're disconnected from why they're doing it. They're running, but they don't know where. Busy, but not fulfilled. I recognize that look. I lived there for years. If I could go back and speak to my younger self, I wouldn't tell him to change everything overnight. I'd tell him this: stop waiting for permission to care about your own life. You don't need a crisis to reevaluate your direction. You don't need to hit rock bottom to choose differently. You just need to be honest. Honest about what energizes you. Honest about what drains you. Honest about what you've been postponing. The cost of ignoring yourself is subtle, but it compounds. Years add up. And one day, you realize time didn't run out suddenly. You gave it away gradually. At my age, the future is shorter. That's just reality. But the clarity is sharper. I don't waste energy on things that don't matter. I don't perform a life that looks good but feels empty. I choose presence. That's the gift time gives you, if you're willing to listen. If you're watching this and something inside you feels unsettled, don't dismiss it. That discomfort isn't a problem. It's information. It's asking you to slow down, to pay attention, to make conscious choices instead of automatic ones. You don't need to reinvent your life. You just need to stop living it unconsciously. Before the last day comes, ask yourself this: am I choosing this life, or am I just continuing it? There's still time to answer honestly, and that answer matters more than you think.